I'd like to call the special meeting of the Plymouth Board of Education on January 26, 2022 to order at 7:01 p.m. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 on the agenda, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have that motion? By Greg Showers, seconded by Mr. Foote. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 3 on the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Plymouth Board of Education of December 8th, 2021. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
By Mr. Showers. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Dia Fusco. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mrs. Lucian abstains. All right, item number 4 on the agenda, superintendent's update. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Acting Superintendent Mr. Falcone.
Thank you very much. Before I begin the budget presentation this evening, there are 2 informational items I'd like the board to know about. First, we had 2 resignations at the high school recently. One was a Spanish teacher, one was a family and consumer science teacher. We're in the process of interviewing for a Spanish teacher as we speak, and we're hoping to have that position filled as soon as possible. But Mr. Holt and I made the decision not to post the family and consumer science position at this time, and that's for 2 reasons. The first is it's a very difficult certified position to fill, and we didn't want to be rushed in the hire, and we want to have time to find the right fit for our school district. Additionally, the second reason is because the semester just ended, and we were able to take the students from those classes and disperse them out to other electives. So it made sense for the education of kids at this time to not replace the family, consumer, and teacher now. We will do it for the 2022-2023 school year, though. The second announcement I'd like to make is that on February 1st, we'll begin after-school busing at our middle school and our high school. That was funded by our ESSER grant. It's our hope that providing transportation for the students after school will get more students participating in our after-school activities. And with that, I'm going to head over to the screen to start our budget presentation. All right, so starting the presentation, the main key I have to emphasize is this budget is not my budget. This is the budget of the administrative team in the back, and it's the budget of the teachers they worked with in creating it. And I can't thank them enough for the hard work that they put in. This process started on October 15th when we met with the administrative team for the first time. And when we met, we had a discussion about what's going to ground our work, what's going to push us forward as a district. And we talked about the board goals that were adopted. We talked about the 4 key areas. 1 is student achievement. 2 is student engagement. 3 is well-being. And 4 is the responsibility to the town to put a responsible budget forward. So that's what grounded the work in our budget development.
Stay here. All right. So we're going to review what the budget, kind of how the budget was developed. This will look familiar to you. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The top line here is the allocation from the town of Plymouth. That is the amount of money that the town approved last year to come to our budget, for our budget this year that we're in now. And if you remember, there was a memorandum of agreement that allowed us to use up to $645,000 of money that we set aside last year, along with $150,000 that was in the sinking fund. So last year, the board adopted what is this year's budget, 2021 and 22. A Board of Education adopted operating budget of $25,197,538. So what we're asking for is a 2.35% increase. And that gave us a target budget for this year. You're good, Brian, it's good. Of our starting point, town allocation of $24,552,027. 2.35% is $576,973. Yep, I got that. For a targeted budget for 2022-2023 of $25,129,000. That's 2.35 is the current ask you'll see in the budget books that Brian is handing out. Our current budget, if you will, with all of the things that Brian's going to talk about shortly, the 2022-23 budget request is at $25,420,623. That leaves us a deficit, if you will, of $291,623. And it's our intent to fill that gap for next year with the remaining sinking fund money from this year. The agreement allows us to use anything left over from that $645,000 next year. So we are working diligently to make sure that we have that money at the end of this year so that we can use it next year to fill the gap. By doing so, that would still leave from the original $645,511, $320,511 in the sinking fund. We may need to use some of that for some one-time purchases this year, but we are working to make sure that we don't use it all because we have to close the gap next year.
So as we talked about, what grounds the work that we did as an administrative team in creating the budget were the board goals and aligning our asks and what we needed to the board goals. And again, the first one deals with student achievement. So I put some high leverage moves we're making as an administrative team in this presentation, even though they are no cost, because I think they're important to highlight. First is aligning our intervention services pre-K through grade 12 and making sure that we're supporting all of the kids through our SRBI or MTSS model. It's a new model that they just changed the name of. That basically supports kids that need academic support from pre-K through grade 12, and we align those services. Also at the high school, they just worked as a committee to create a new schedule, and we're working on a new schedule at the middle school as well. All to impact learning in the education for kids. Everything in orange here, and I am colorblind, so I'm going with what people told me was orange. Everything in orange here is built into the budget for next year. So in our contract negotiations with the teachers, we talked on aligning all the leadership positions in each grade level from pre-K through 12 in all of the departments pre-K through 12 to make sure that we have that leadership in the schools working with our administrative team to move forward. Additionally, we put a library media specialist in Plymouth Center School 4 days a week and at Fisher 1 day a week. We right now have one library media specialist in the whole entire district that is housed here at the high school. And we're hoping to split those positions and have this library media specialist for elementary schools and then the high school one for middle school and high school to strengthen and bolster those programs for kids. We also have literacy professional development that we're planning pre-K through 12 for next year, new math textbooks for kindergarten through grade 5, and we have a new data warehouse system for our data for teachers to reference. Our second goal deals with engagement. Again, what's no cost in the budget, we are looking to order 2 special ed vans for our students. Open the doors of our high school for them to give them new experiences outside of our school for learning opportunities. And by buying these through a grant funds that we have, it saves thousands and thousands and thousands on transportation costs over time. So those are 2 vans we're going to buy from grant funds. But again, back to the orange, what's built into the budget, we have a career center at Perryville High School. We currently have one, but we're looking to put a certified career counselor in place. And we're also looking to put a STEM program at Harry S. Fisher Elementary School and a STEM program at Eli Terry Junior Middle School. And finally, we have well-being. And under well-being, we have 2 items here. It's an adaptive playscape, which is not is not built into the budget because we have a FISCAL activity fund that is currently, it's going to be utilized to put that activity playscape in for the kids, and also a unified program here at the high school, which is just tweaking a course that we're going to offer for our kids.
Okay. So at each of our schools, we've done multiple walkthroughs over time and looked at our facilities and determined areas that we feel need to be addressed for the well-being of our schools. At Plymouth Center, we're talking about new cafeteria tables for the cafeteria. Now that that is a K2 school, the equipment that's there now is a little big for these little ones, so we really need to look at making it more comfortable for them to sit. We are currently looking at quotes for what that's going to cost us, but we should be able to fund that through the cafeteria fund. So out of the operating budget, there should be no cost. We also know that there are some upgrades and some safety concerns there. Painting the cafeteria needs to happen. We fixed the roof there, but when you look at the cafeteria, you can see that there's water stains that come down the walls. We really just need to address that. They're cosmetic, but they make a big difference. The sidewalk repairs and walkways are something that now are a safety issue. I didn't put photographs in this presentation, but if you would like to see them, I've got some right here on my phone. But it is a safety issue. We do need to have that addressed. We are looking at that, but that is going to be a cost to the town and to the district at some point, and we need to address it. At Harry S. Fisher School, many of the same things, right? New cafeteria tables for the school. Right now, the tables come out of the wall and fold down. Some of them are broken, they're aged. We can't get parts for them, so we are looking at replacements for them. Again, should be no cost to the district. We should be able to do that through our cafeteria funds. We need a walk-in refrigerator, freezer there. We simply don't have the storage to continuously safely store our foods and products there. We had one. We had to take it down because it went well past its life and it was no longer operating. It needs to be replaced. We're looking at a grant for that right now. We have a grant application in, and it should cover nearly all of the expense. If we get the full grant, it's going to cover all but about $5,000 of a $32,000 expense. So our fingers are crossed we get that and we move on. Removing the old lockers in the hallways. The principal at Fisher has talked to us about her wish to have those removed. Many of them are in tough shape, and if the kids just walk down and run their hands along the doorways, there's a safety issue there. So we're looking to have those taken out and perhaps doing something different there. Well, we did talk about needing to make sure that we're in fire code and all that, so obviously none of that work would be done unless we make sure that we're in compliance. Removing the old stair lift that was right in the front entranceway. It was non-functioning, and it has been removed and taken out, so that is no longer there. All of those are basically no cost to the district at this point. Summer work, it's things that we would be doing anyway. We do need to paint the common areas. If you walk the hallways there, you'll see that they need an upgrade, and similar to Plymouth Center, our sidewalks and walkways need attention. At Eli Terry, again, painting the common areas, sidewalk repairs, and the one thing that we have here is a full-time secretary. You will see that that is in the budget this year. That school, with the amount of students and the work that needs to be done, we really saw a need to have that in there. And district-wide, we have implemented a self-sustaining Chromebook insurance program. Basically what that means is parents will pay an insurance fee, and that pool of money then covers the cost of repairs and so forth of our equipment out there. We are looking at a new website platform to improve our website. We're going to be putting in secured printing at all the schools. And what that means is this. First off is we are going to be providing access to color printing at each of the schools. We do feel that there's a need for our teachers when they have color, they need color printing to be able to do that. But we're going to basically, I'm going to use the term lock down the printers, which means you'll use your badge to swipe through and print. So you won't be able to print anywhere. Let me rephrase that. You will be able to print anywhere, but you can't just repeatedly print over and over. There'll be limitations on how many pages you get per month, and you need to separate whether it's going to be color or black and white. If you just need black and white, that's where you go. That's the most cost-effective way to do that. So we are looking at that. The other nice thing about it is if Brian's doing a presentation over at Plymouth Center and he has a presentation that needs to be done, he can simply create it here at the office, drive over to Plymouth Center, go to any of those machines, run his card through it, and it prints there on site. So we're looking forward to that. And then last is the district is in desperate need of a chemical hygiene specialist. We have not addressed this need for quite some time now. Brian and I are looking at it as a stipend position. We're talking about people who may be able to fill this, but essentially we need somebody who's going to go around and certify that we're handling not only our science class chemicals and those things appropriately, but also art paints and so forth. So,
What question on that?
Sure.
What is the requirements for that as far as training?
So we got whoever takes the position, we would have to send them out to training. We would look that up and make sure we're getting the appropriate training that goes into that.
Right.
Usually in districts, they look at a chemistry teacher because they have a lot of the background in that, but we'll see who's interested.
Okay. And that's required by
It is required.
law.
We should have that in place. So with this budget and getting it to a number that is reasonable for the town, community, and for what we need, there are positions that are going to have to be eliminated or reassigned. I am not at this time positive how many teachers will have to be eliminated and how many will be reassigned. It all is determined by their certification and our needs and where we need to put them. So right now we're looking at 12 non-certified positions that would be either eliminated or repurposed. 4 recess monitors, 5 paraprofessionals, which are all part-time positions, the school to career secretary, the school to career position that's currently in place, which is a non-certified position, and a hall monitor at Eli Terry Junior Middle School. And we're also talking about 6 certified positions, a grade 2 teacher, I'll talk about class size in a little bit, a grade 3 teacher, a math coach at Eli, a math coach at Plymouth Center, a music teacher, and a dean of students at Fisher Elementary School. So those are the proposed elimination or reassigned positions that we have. But this is what you're going to get in return at each school. You're going to get a library media specialist at Plymouth Center. You're going to get a STEM program at Harry S. Fisher. You're going to get a full-time secretary and a STEM teacher at Eli Terry. You're going to get a certified career counselor at the high school. And district-wide, we talked about the chemical hygiene specialist. We're also aligning our academic leadership across the district.
Magic.
Right at the end of the presentation.
There you go.
Perfect. Additional positions will be added if needed throughout the year, depending on the need and the circumstance. So this is what we have at this time with our eliminations and reassignments.
Okay, these next few slides are, you got the heavy thumb book on, Brian. Next few slides are really informational and historical. You've seen many of these before. So this slide, I did cut it back. There's only 11 points of data here, but I think it's important to see what the average increases have been over the last, this is 11 years. You can see there is 1 year below 0, 2 years at 0, 7 years below 1%, 4 years between 1% and 2.5%. But I think the key is when you look at the average, it's only been a 0.732% increase year over year over year. And when you consider that our contractual obligations run at 2.2 or 2.27 to 2.3%, it's very hard to continue to moving forward when this is all the money that's going into the schools. It's very difficult. This next slide shows where Plymouth falls in relation to those in our district reference group, or DIRG. You can see that the average per pupil expenditure for the DIRG is $19,655. And we run at about $17,398. I did some quick math. If we were at the DIRG average, that would be about an additional $2.9 million in our budget, and we wouldn't have some of those previous slides, obviously. But I think it's important to know that we're on the lower end as opposed to the higher end, and we really should be working towards the middle. If you look at this slide last year, we're in exactly the same position we didn't move, where other school districts have moved around. This slide you also have seen before. This is the same slide I used last year. But again, if you look at, right, there's an idea out there that, oh my goodness, our budget is $24,552.27. That's our budget. But what is the cost? The cost to our taxpayers is a different number. Cost to the taxpayers is $14,749,906. And the reason for that is because the town of Plymouth receives $9.8 million from the state of Connecticut for the ECS grant. And that goes straight to the town to offset the cost of their educational budget. So I just think it's important that people realize that the cost to the average taxpayer is not $24 million, it's 14. And then this slide is really just a breakdown of where the money is spent. 59% of it goes to salaries and 19% goes to benefits. That means 78% of our budget is salaries and benefits. It's people. Then if you look at the next highest drivers is we've got transportation makes up 8% of our budget. Tuition and outplacements are 7%, and that includes students that choose to go outside that are not in the special ed program. Utilities runs about 3%. Instructional supplies and textbooks are 2%. Our facilities is about 2%, and everything else you can think of falls in the last 1% of our budget expenditures. So when you look at what's controllable, you're looking at really the 1% and maybe a portion of facilities based on what we need for supplies and so forth. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of room.
So when you think about the $24 million, how much do we actually have control over before we hit that staff? And that staffing elimination and reconfiguration and reassignment. You have to go there to keep the budget where it needs to be with the money that we've received year after year as a district. So here's your projected enrollment. And I think most of you know in town there's a pretty big subdivision, I think, that's going in, which is going to throw off this whole enrollment. And you have it in your packet, so I don't need to show you where we're going, but I think it's a little deceiving knowing we have a pretty big subdivision going in town. But this is more important information for any educator. It's your average class size. So in the elementary school, you could see where we fall. This is with the proposed elimination of the second and third grade teacher. We would have 21 in a class. So that's our elementary numbers for next year on average. And here's our middle school and high school. And it's hard with middle school and high school because there are other choices. So these are approximate numbers in their classes as well. It's not as exact as an elementary school would be. But if you look across the board, besides sixth grade where we have a bubble of a smaller class, really it's 21 to 20 across the board in all of our schools. So what that tells me as a superintendent is that there's not much more we can cut staffing-wise. And then those numbers start to go higher, and now we're impacting kids' education in not a favorable way. So we have to be careful, and we have to look at how we're utilizing our money. So the next steps in this process. So obviously this meeting happened this evening because of circumstances out of our control. COVID obviously stepped in, and we had a number of people that couldn't make certain meetings. And even tonight, we're down 2 members of our board in presenting the budget. But we have to do this budget because we have timelines that we have to abide by. And what we need to know tonight is, do we want to have a budget workshop on February 2nd, which is next Wednesday, to give you time to look through your binders, the entire budget, to ask questions of myself, of Matt, and possibly the administrative team, if there's specific questions either of us can't answer that they might have in their budget. Or if you feel that is not necessary and you would like to reconvene on our normal time on February 10th, we could have our normal board meeting. But at that point, it's where we really need to review and adopt that budget in a vote to move forward to the town and prepare for our presentation to the town and community. So that's kind of where we are in the process now.
So this last slide is really just a summary, but I broke it into two portions here. What I wanted you to see was the top section of this slide is the budget request that we're asking for based off of our Board of Education adopted budget, which you can see through the work that we've done is we're asking for less than 1% of our adopted Board of Education budget. But when you use those same dollars against the town's allocation of our budget, it's 2.35%. I just want to show the work that we've accomplished to get down so that we can make this manageable. Now, I'm also going to say that there's significant risk in the budget. There are things in here that I was aggressive budgeting. My first example will be when we talk about benefits. This year it was zero-based budget. So I took every employee of the district. We looked at what they are taking for benefits, whether it's single plus one, or family. We used those costs, and then I used a 6% increase on that. Now, I just got a thing from a letter from our insurance broker who is telling me now that it's going to be an 8% increase. So in this budget, I'm off by 2% out of the gate. Now, they're early preliminary numbers. Traditionally, they will come back a little bit. But there's risk here. When we talk about utilities, I did not build in a large increase for what our utilities are. Electric and gas are going up at a significant rate. I did build in an increase here, but if they skyrocket more, there's going to be risk. For each of the administrators in the room back here, their supply lines were zeroed out. That means we didn't increase the supply lines, but keep in mind that inflation right now is running 6 or 7, 8%. That means that each one of those people are going to have 6 or 7 or 8% less than what they had this year because the pricing is different. So there's going to be less money to get those things. So there is some risk in here, but I feel we were in agreement that we needed to be aggressive to come into a number to you, and then we're just going to have to manage it in some way.
The other thing I want to mention, and it's worth noting, as you go through the budget, you're going to see some significant increases in departments. We've had a number of business managers over the past 7 years, and each one has come in and done things a little different. And Matt has had to kind of realign some positions and some people and some supply into the appropriate budgets. So you will see areas that are zeroed out and other areas that will go up 80%. It's just a matter of moving things around in the budget to clean up the budget for future. That's why that happened. There actually isn't a 124% increase in curriculum and instruction. We just moved all of our interventionists and coaches and tutors into Kathleen's budget line. So it's important to note that as well.
And you'll see the same with facilities. There's a large increase in facilities because I pulled all of the custodial staff out of the individual buildings and I put them under facilities. I feel that that's where they belong. We move those folks around all the time in order to cover things, so it just makes sense that they're under the facilities budget, not the individual building budgets. Brian talked about the interventionist coaches and tutors. I did the same thing. I took them out of the buildings. We put them district-wide because they do move around and inside. So when you look at those lines, you'll see some significant decreases, but keep in mind, turn a couple pages, you're going to see some significant increases.
And I just want to end with this process. is a lot of work, and I've already thanked the administrative team, and Matt has done a tremendous job. It does impact people's lives. There are conditions moving and changing within our district, and it's for the best interest of the children in the district. But these are not easy discussions to have. They're not easy moves to make, but it's how we're going to move forward. And change isn't always easy, but it's necessary right now. And we had that conversation in our board retreat of why these things are necessary in moving us forward. So again, thank you for allowing us to present the budget. And you just need to direct us in if we need a meeting next Wednesday to kind of answer some more questions you might have, or if you'd like to go to the February 10th board.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Let's have a discussion. What do you think we should have the board retreat? What do you think we're able to go into the meeting? I'd like to hear some thoughts.
My thoughts are that if we don't have the retreat, some of our members who are not here tonight are not going to have the opportunity to ask questions before February 10th. And that may pose a problem for us with them. That's my thought. Knowing them, I think they will have questions. Not that
I'd
that's
like
a
to
bad
review
thing.
it.
Yeah, no,
And then,
all right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we review it, digest it, and then we'll let, we'll make that decision, and we'll say Monday. All right, so fair?
Mhm.
All right, good. Thank you. All right, item number 5 on the agenda is public comment. Public comment is open to any town resident. If you come to the podium, you do have a 3-minute time limit. Please state your name, spell your last name, and your address for the record. When 3 minutes is up, the vice chair will ding the bell, and please, at that moment, stop speaking. All right, is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. This is an informational item. This has to deal with the out-of-state and out-of-country field trips. This was mentioned before. This is a board policy that authorizes the superintendent, so we don't really need a motion for him to authorize him to make that decision. And what this has to do is there are some travel bans in these countries. That's being evaluated, and some of these trips are very costly for these families to go on. So the superintendent will keep us up to date and make a decision whether to cancel those trips or not, due to the fact of travel bans and COVID. And one of the fears is that, you know, we have students that travel abroad and they get stuck over there and are unable to return to home. So he's going to make that determination. I know he's been watching it very closely. So just be apprised of that. All right. Under new business, winter break. I'll entertain the motion, and then under discussion, I will let the superintendent explain a little better what this is about. I'd like to entertain a motion to give the acting superintendent and the Board of Education Chair the authority to adjust the winter break to include a long weekend in March, if necessary, a 4-day weekend. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
By Mr. Shower. So I have a second on that motion by Mr. Foote. All right, at this time, discussion on the motion. Mr. Falcone, can you explain a little further the purpose for that?
Sure. I think teachers across the country are struggling right now. We have teacher shortages. There are shortages across basically all areas right now, and we're being pushed to our limits. And we have a very long stretch between our February, our 2 days off in February for President's Day, and our April vacation. And the thinking is, or was, to put out a survey to teachers to see if they would be interested in us extending a weekend in March to give everyone a breather, to take a step back and just take care of themselves. And 248 people or staff members responded to the survey I sent out. 127, or 51.2%, were in favor of a March extended weekend. And 121 were not in favor of a March weekend, which is 48.8%. So typical of this year, nothing is easy. And they kind of went right down the middle. I am going to make a decision in the coming weeks so I can inform parents about, and the staff and faculty about the direction. I do think, I think that stress is high in our district right now as it is across the state. And I think it's taking a toll. And so I want to be aware. I want you to be aware of that. And I want the staff and faculty to know that I'm aware of that. And we're looking into seeing what we can do to help.
Right. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Falcone about the motion?
Do you know, because I'm assuming that went out to all staff members, do you have a breakdown of which category of staff members voted which way?
Karen, to be honest with you, I didn't even know how to put together a survey. I had a little assistance with that. I can just tell you the total numbers at this time.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it was easier for people to vote no if they could take a day off anyway, and it wouldn't really be impactful to the classroom. Because I know for me to take a day off from my classroom is stressful because I may or may not have a sub.
I could tell you, talking to the union presidents, that it's pretty 50-50 as well.
Good, all right.
So,
any other comments? Questions? Let's call for the vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, item number 7 on the agenda, board member committee reports, finance and operations. Mr. Tenza, back at it.
Back at it. Again, you received in your packet now there are 4 reports that you get on a regular monthly basis. I just want to point out that food service continues to do well, even on months that have holidays and so forth. We were still turned a profit in the month of December. So when I talked about being able to replace cafeteria tables and things of that nature, we have been able to make some of those improvements. And I've been working with Alicia DePonte to make sure that we're doing upgrades to the cafeteria while we can do that. Because if you remember with the National School Lunch Program funding, we can't just stockpile it. We're supposed to reinvest back into the program. So this is an opportunity for us to do so. And that is what we're doing. We're putting a plan together so that we can upgrade the program, yet because we don't know what next year brings, we want to make sure that we have some cushion in that account so that if next year we go back to forepay and participation is not at nearly 80%, that we're prepared for that too. And then if you look at our spending, traditional spending for month over month, we're really in line as we have been year over year over year. So we continue to move along in a very consistent manner. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And if not, we can move along.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Tenza? All right, thank you. All right. The accounts by fiscal report, as we know, will be forwarded to the town of Plymouth Board of Finance as their normal course of action. The personnel report, Mr. Falcone, acting superintendent.
You've all been provided with an updated personnel report in your board packet. This report covers resignations we've received and certified and non-certified positions which are still open at this time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Great. All right, item number 8, public comment. Second public comment, again, same rules apply. Any town resident can speak, limited to 3 minutes. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and spell it and your address for the record. Any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, moving along to board liaison reports. This is Calissa, Terrible High School.
Oh, all the way down there, huh? Terrigal High School PTSA did not meet this past month. They did do a push out of mailings for donor letters for the after grad party. for our seniors to enjoy a safe, fun last night together. So if you are one of our lucky recipients of a letter requesting a donation, please consider that. They will be going out to local businesses and families who have donated in the past. If you are not one who has donated in the past and would like to, we would be happy to take your donation. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zabushka, Plymouth Center School.
I was informed by principal of Plymouth Center that there would be no PTA meeting this month. And I'd like to thank Mr. Brian Falcone for the report.
Ms. Fusco, anything for Ed Advance?
I attended.
Yeah, I was ill that day, so
Okay.
it's classic.
I attended the meeting.
Perfect.
It was really just a preliminary meeting, introducing everybody to each other. It was all new members, not all new members, but some new members, and explaining what a RESC is, how they support the districts within their area. There is a big push. They would like to recruit new members from districts that do not have representation and have not historically. Plymouth has always had very good representation over the last at least 20 years. There's been somebody from our district, but there are districts who have not had any. So that is what their hope is to recruit some of those members.
Okay.
And Jeff, for the record, called me, Jeff Kitchings, and he said, I know you guys are very enthusiastic about being a part of this, but we only have one vote still.
Yes, no, they explained that. So if, obviously only one of us could will be attending, so.
Okay. All right. Mr. Showers, anything for district?
District Safety Committee will be meeting in April.
April. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Seeing that, we'll move on to board comments. We'll start with Mr. Zabushka.
I really have nothing to say.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Wilson.
Just that I really like the presentation and the binder and how it's color coded. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Clausen.
Yes, I appreciate the hard work of all of our administrators and teachers who put together this budget. I know it's not easy and I know it's not fun, but it is appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Showers. Okay. All right. Ms. Fusco.
Also, I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into the budget. I'm glad that they brought up the issue of I know it seems like something very minor, but just having color printers when you're looking at data and test scores and the way that things move around, in black and white, you're only seeing different shades. It's really hard to determine data when you can't see the colors of red, green, blue, yellow, which represent the movement of students academically. So if you really can't see that very clearly, it's hard to analyze data. So something that simple in the budget really does make a big difference. So it really needs to be looked over with a close eye.
Mr. Foote.
No comment.
No comment. Okay. I'm very appreciative of the work that has gone into this budget, not just in this presentation. So I speak to Mr. Falcone quite a bit. I think, we've gone back and forth with a lot of things. And Mr. Tenza, I think for the first time in a long time, this board has worked on putting key people in place here. Cleaning up the budget, just, taking things out of this area, putting them over here where they belong on basic accounting practices. I know they worked very hard on that, and I'm going to say that this is a well put, honest budget that has been put together, and a very transparent budget that has been put together. So, and I know that the town and the Board of Finance and the council will be appreciative of that when they get to look at it and understand it. So, thank you. All right. The next board meeting, the next regular meeting of the Plymouth Board of Education is on Wednesday, February 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the cafeteria at Taylorville High School. With that said, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn at, 7:47 p.m.
So moved.
Mr. Showers, do I have a second? By Mr. Foote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Both meeting adjourned.